Welcome to the art of becoming whole, where we get to explore the edges of the human experience from anywhere from the meditation cushion to the therapy room, and of course, beyond. My name is Justin. I'm a practicum counseling student in Texas and a certified hypnotist.
And I'm Kevin Stansbury, LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. I'm an intuitive holistic psychotherapist in California.
And I guess today we are talking about grief.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, well, at least me feeling grief too. The primary emotion that I seem to encounter, especially like this past year or the last few years, is grief. But actually, I think that's just the primary emotion I encounter, like
In
forever,
general.
like my whole life,
Huh.
Or at least my whole adult life. Yeah, like it's like it, it doesn't matter where I start, I always end at grief. Like the first layer could be anger, or there could be all these other layers, but then when I strip away the layers, at the bottom is always grief.
Interesting.
Is that true? I think so, mostly. I mean, maybe sometimes it's just like just anger, or that could be, but for a lot of things at least.
Hmm.
But maybe that's also just like like the hand I was dealt, and the I have a lot of things to grieve. Like just the unfolding of my life. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I draw parallels with other people. It seems like everyone has a lot to grieve about their childhoods, probably. Um, but then just with the mold stuff and health stuff going throughout my whole adulthood, uh, that's a lot there. And then more recently with my past relationship.
Hmm.
But
But I
yeah,
mean, it's, yeah.
what were you
But
gonna
I
say?
mean that I no, I think it just says something about your psychology. It's interesting that you're relating to things via grief versus like anger. Because you could, right? You could get angry. I think simultaneously you could get angry at all those same things.
And I do.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
But really, it just seems like it's not linear. It's not exactly like the way I was describing it, where, you know, the first layer is anger, and then I get to a deeper layer, and it's grief. It's dynamic, where it could start as grief, and then as I'm going through, like, I don't even know if grief is an emotion, or if it's more like it seems to me like some kind of dynamic state that contains lots of emotions. Maybe it's also considered an emotion, but certainly we talk about it like the stages of grief, and then
Yeah,
it's these different emotions. So
fair. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But like I guess that's how I'm relating to it, where it seems more like a state, and then I give myself to it, and then it takes me through stages where it's like, okay, now I have to feel the anger about this, this, and this.
Hmm.
But then I open up into a deeper acceptance or a love or something, and then it's like a softer sort of grief, where it becomes a bittersweet grief instead of just a bitter grief. There's a lot of different ways it could go, I guess.
Right. Fair.
But I actually think this could be a good thing to talk about.
Grief?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I actually recorded a video this past week that I'm not going to post about it because I'm not going to post it. A couple of reasons. I've just been sick and I just wasn't. I just don't like it. Basically, I didn't like how it turned out. But also, I'm getting better at doing the reels where I record for a shorter like because typically I could just easily talk for 15 minutes. But then reels are 3 minutes long, so I have to. That's a lot of work to edit down. So I'd rather talk for 5 minutes and then.
Edit it down. Yeah.
So anyway, getting better at that. But yeah, I have a lot to say about it, and I think it connects in some ways to the broader conversation that I was thinking maybe we would have about um, depression and anxiety and what they are.
Hmm. Okay. I haven't explored that, so we'll see what transpires here.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. My experience is that grief is the transformer. It's like the thing that it's the transformative emotional state that to me there's no equal. It's not like I haven't felt anger in the same way that transforms me and who I am to the same degree that going through a grief process does. Because to me, grief is like, well, like you said, it's we usually think of it as losing a person, but it's just loss. It's losing something. And so that means we were attached to something and now it's gone or it's leaving. And so outside of our own control, our own free will, um, life decides to take something out of our hands that we're attached to. And then it's like there's an identity in the attachment. There's something about being attached to something or somebody that it's like it's a part of me, it's a part of who I am. And so if I lose it, now I become somebody else.
That's an interesting way to put it. And I think I agree. I think what you reminded me was, and I need to reread this book, but it's called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And if I remember correctly, which I might not, memory's a tricky thing, but I actually think he was talking very similarly with what you were saying
Mm.
about losing identity. Um, I will say, just off the top of my head, I don't know if I relate to grief as much as you do, at least in the moment. Because you're seeing as both a necessary transition and an emotion, right? Maybe I just don't frame it in that language. For me, all paths lead to some kind of emotional pain. Sort of. It's not 100% accurate, but in my personal experience, it's been the majority of things. At the bottom, at the root is just, it's not even an emotion, it's just pure pain. Obviously, there's meaning to it, uh, and there might be grief attached to it, but that's been my experience. And maybe we're talking about the same thing, but just using different language. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering about that. Um, yeah, is it just pain? I can't, maybe you can help me. I can't think of a scenario where I was hurt and there's pain where there isn't grief. Because I'm thinking like, for example, certain childhood experiences where I was hurt, it's like there's grief there of not having my needs met, or like maybe losing my innocence, or, there's some kind of loss in the hurt. I guess I lost the experience of not being hurt.
You say that again. I lost the experience of not being hurt.
I don't know if that's right, but just like there's something inherent, it's like there's this stream of life that my psyche wanted to have, and then it didn't have that. Anytime I was hurt, it's like we none of us want to be hurt. None of us want to feel pain. So anytime that happens, it's like then there's at least a little bit of grief just at the loss of that uninterrupted stream of non-pain.
So I feel like I'm having a hard time uh just talking and thinking. I don't know what it is. There's some thing coming up. I don't know. I don't think it's related to our discussion. It's just kind of I don't know, I don't feel like I'm in a real flow right now.
Mm.
Maybe I need to grieve. I don't know. Um,
I'm always open to shifting in a different direction if you want to.
I don't know what direction to shift is the issue.
I mean, if you want to just like breathe and lean into whatever that is.
Yeah, it's leftover pain. Hmm. Maybe we can talk about this because theoretically, if we let ourselves feel all the stages of whatever loss that we had, right? All the meaning attached to it, and we just go through the emotion without judgment as best as we can, theoretically it will change, right? But I think sometimes it might not, or it will come back, even though we've done the work up to a point.
Mm.
I found in my personal experience, and then also what I know about the subconscious, is that if there's something that grief is doing for us or giving us, there's some kind of, it's called secondary gain. You can do all the grieving you want, but it'll keep on coming back because uh, there's some, I don't want to say deeper, but something maybe adjacent that grief is doing for you that your system thinks it needs to keep this for some reason. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I'm I'm almost understanding. Uh, so for as an example, maybe I could imagine, I don't know. I was thinking about some like social stuff for myself, where when I was younger, had a lot more social anxiety. Um, it was really intense when I was like 19, 20. And now, I've done a lot of changing and growing, transforming, and it still comes back around. And but it's different. It's like less intense usually than it was before. Um, and I don't I'm not identified with it in the same way. So I have a different relationship with it. Uh, but but yeah, that still comes up. And that is related to, I guess, like foundational sense of worth in a way. Foundational sense of worth, or like, I just really want people to like me and am afraid that I won't be good enough. And so there's that, which is like a core thing. And then maybe I could experience grief related to that, but grieving won't actually like get rid of that. It won't change that or release that. It's just
Yeah.
that's kind of what you're saying?
Um, that's related, is adjacent.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I feel like in your case there might not be some. I mean, there could be. I don't know. Well, do you mind if I dig
Sure.
here? Okay. So, what do you think this grief is giving you?
Well, here's the problem because I was just pulling some example out of my ass.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So, okay, all right. Well, we won't go there.
Uh,
Um,
yeah. So because I don't actually feel a lot of grief around that necessarily.
yeah,
So
yeah,
not the best example.
yeah. So it seems to me like the grief is more like a secondary uh issue as it relates to the fear of not being liked and then not being good enough. Is that, I guess, the core in this sense, right?
Yeah. I just so again, I'm not experiencing this actively,
Yeah,
but
yeah, okay, okay.
there were many years where I think I would cry. I would go into like emotional release, and it felt like grief. And because of the circles I was traveling in, I thought like, oh, this is the way to heal this thing. But then it just seemed like I just fucking kept crying about it.
Yeah. So I I think what we're talking about are related. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you didn't actually resolve the thing. It was
Yeah.
just, yeah, you just kept crying about it, and then that's that.
Yeah, it was like I mean the way I think about it now is that I was feeling I was feeling feelings associated with it, but I was still so identified with the whole experience that it was the feelings were just cycling. It wasn't actually moving anywhere. Because that movement only happens when I'm not identified with the feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So were you saying, did you bring this up because it's related to something you were feeling?
I guess so. Yeah, it's related to at least what I'm perceiving myself to experience
Oh,
is sometimes it's just another level or a layer that you just have to go through, and that's fine, right? Like you just go through it, and eventually it will transmute and release. But other times, it's like what you were talking about. It's like you just keep on looping in that grief or the pain or whatever it might be, and then it just seems to not resolve, even though you feel it without judgment.
yeah.
And I think that's a sign of there's something else going on, and that's not the actual true problem. So I guess I'm going through that right now is that there's some reason this pain kind of keeps coming back. At least in this moment. Not like all the time. So I guess that's why I kind of brought it up.
And I don't know, I'm not sure if this derails the whole thing, but but my mind was going to a recent training that I did with my friend Ali Tatarin, and she does this work in the bioemotive framework that her dad Douglas Tatarin came up with.
What can you explain the framework? I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna totally I'm doing a brief butcher of it right now. Um, but essentially it's like more of I'd call it more of a somatic method, in that the whole thing is about emotional release. And so it's about, um, I'm actually forgetting the exact order of things, but essentially it's like digging into a particular experience, and maybe you identify the story that you're telling about the experience, and then there's like a list of interpersonal feelings, and you can identify the interpersonal feeling, and then you can say, when this happened, I felt this. And then that helps you lead into this other list of core feelings. And so they have this separation between interpersonal feelings and core feelings, which at some point we can go more or go over more. But I'm bringing it up because at the end, essentially, the goal is to cry. It's like to go totally into the experience. I mean, crying doesn't always need to happen, but it's like, when there are tears, and they actually have this worksheet that describes different levels of crying. And then it's like, you get to, I forgot how many levels there are, level 5. And that's like, you're bawling and shaking or whatever. And you don't always have to get to that level, but there's something about the emotional release where the body is actually like having an experience of letting go, and or letting the feelings move, letting the energy move, and then the nervous system can change through that experience. But I think you have to not be totally identified with the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was hearing up to a point, I was like, oh, wow, I really like that. And then, and to be fair, I would have to hear it from the horse's mouth and actually study the system, right? Um, where I have mixed feelings is like you have to cry and get to this level 5 bawling somatic release level. That's where I'm like, I'm not sure if I agree or disagree.
Yeah, and I don't think they would say that either. It's like in my experience of doing that work, it's, very fluid and flexible and like honoring of the person and where you're at. It's not like, okay, let's like push you to cry.
Okay. Bioemotive uh therapy, is that what it's called? A
The bio-emotive framework.
framework. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, we could talk more about that specifically sometime. Maybe we'll have Allie on or something. Uh,
Yeah. Dope.
but uh but yeah, I why did I bring it up? Oh, I think again, so I'm calling it grief. I guess, yeah, I don't really maybe it is just pain. I don't know. I what's the difference in your experience
Yeah.
involved
Um, there's less crying.
for pain?
Yeah. I guess it's just the label that I put on it. It just seems to describe the experience. So there could be crying, but it could just not be crying. It could just be just straight pain and owie,
Uh,
like just um yeah.
hmm. Can I just like think out loud?
Yeah.
Um, I was wondering, so the thoughts I was having were, I wonder if it's a just like a if it could be a typology thing of just like I'm prone to crying. And so anytime I feel pain, I will not not anytime I feel pain, anytime I go deep into like emotional pain, if I'm really getting to the root of something, pretty sure I'll cry. Trying to think of examples where I don't. It seems like the biggest, deepest things always make me cry. And so I was wondering if it's a typology thing or if you have trouble crying.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've cried. I've done a lot of crying.
Mm.
Um, maybe. I'm really. It's possible aspects of me have trouble crying, and I've done a lot of crying, and I don't always cry. Now I'm trying to think if I actually just always cry if there's emotional pain if I go through it. I don't know. I mean, I might be tearing up because it's painful. Um, yeah, I'm not. It's a good question
I'm also questioning myself and I'm like, okay, well, I mean,
because okay, I'm gonna derail not derail it. It's related, right? So I'm sure there's an element of grieving when it comes to something like major depression. And let me caveat and say that there are many causes of major depression. I'm kind of just generalizing here. Obviously, there are different people are complex, and I'm not gonna like put everyone in the box. I think if you are the depressive type, like a depressive personality, and you have major depression, chances are Freud was right on the money in that this depression is simply just anger turned inward that should have been outward. So I am sure there is an element of crying, but I think underlying, one of the underlying factors or causes is not being able to admit, for one, that this anger is turned inward. And then I guess the next layer to that is being not feeling like you can turn this anger out to where it's supposed to go.
mm, yeah. Were you ever severely depressed?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was not I was never diagnosed with major depressive. It was like moderate recurring. But also to be fair, I also was like I don't know, I think I tend to downplay things because I feel like I'm being a victim. So I don't know. Um yeah, I was pretty depressed. And it's only in hindsight now of doing all the work that I'm like, oh, Freud was totally correct. And Jung is correct. I think they're both correct in different ways. You know, it's dialectical.
What's
No,
the
it's a
difference?
dialectic.
What was Young's
I
thing?
guess like, and hopefully I'm not strawmanning. Think I'm, what I'm interpreting him as is like depression is just stuck energy, which is also true. I'd had to chat GBT it and see what is the accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Um, yeah, stuck in. Okay, so you're saying both are correct.
Yeah, they're just two different ways of looking at it. Um, yeah, let's consult chat and make sure I'm not saying anything incorrect here.
Oh my God. It really went long-winded with this one. Uh, descent into the unconscious. The purpose of depression is individuation. It says, when our conscious attitude becomes too rigid, narrow, or disconnected from our deeper capital S self, the psyche compensates by pulling energy inward. This forces the individual to re-examine values, identity, and meaning, a necessary stage in the process Jung called individuation, the unfolding of the true self.
Yeah. And I'd
So,
agree with that.
so depression may represent a conflict between the ego and the capital S self, where the ego must yield and allow a more authentic orientation to emerge. There's a lot more stuff on here, but that's kind of the gist. So, in a way, I think you what you said was right.
Yay. Yeah.
Like a what'd you say, misdirected energy or trapped, stuck energy or something.
Stuck energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking, I also was diagnosed with depression and um when I was a teenager, and it seemed so for sure. The initial thing was like, I think, yes. Well, also mold played a factor for me. Um, so there's, the physiological aspects, um, but the anger turned inward and also the not feeling the right to turn it outward or not feeling like it's safe to turn it outward. Like I'm gonna, yeah, either I'll get in trouble or I'm gonna hurt somebody or something. Uh, all of that's true. But in the healing and growing through that experience, to me at least, it always seemed like there was always something deeper than the anger. It was, I guess, which is pain. It's just like the pain of having that anger going inward for so long. It's like I was being so cruel to myself and, misdirecting that energy or keeping it stuck in there. And so it's like the pain and the hurt of being cruel to myself. And so I had to feel all that. And then like the pain and hurt of having other people mistreat me and not getting my needs met and feeling the pain and hurt of that. And so it's just like a big swirling vat of emotional energy.
Yeah.
I do agree though. I think there's something about the anger that can help like kick you out of that. That's like the initial thing that maybe needs to start happening is to realize, oh, I'm fucking angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
But
I was,
I guess I'd agree, like that below that anger is pain, right?
because
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just numb.
Yeah.
My depression was like melancholic, and so it was
Yeah.
I couldn't feel a thing.
Mm. How did you get out of that? The numbness.
Um, it was 20 years ago, so got to think about it. How did I get out of it? I mean, I went to therapy. I had a really good therapist. I think talking about, I do think I might be misrepresenting this, but I'm pretty sure that probably the first several years of therapy, there was a lot of talking about shit my parents did that I was angry about.
Ah, okay. Nice. So I guess he was, well, that was like present time, like shit that was happening as a teenager that was pissing you off.
No, like probably both. I mean, probably more past.
Childhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then also present. I mean, I was 16, so it's not like I
Yeah,
had that much of a past.
yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. 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 So I guess he was a little bit more psychoanalytic in that sense.
Yeah, he was eclectic.
Yeah.
Um, he was very much. I think there was a lot of humanistic stuff in there, and also just like uh, present moment worthlessness and confidence. He was always focused on self-worth and confidence. And it's like everything would come back to that. And he would just say it over and over again. Oh, well, that's low self-worth. Oh, that's a confidence. Sounds like a confidence problem. And it was like really drilling that in. I know he was, oh man, I'm gonna forget the dude's name. He was a big fan of this one dude who wrote a book called Neurotic Styles.
Interesting.
And he was like I guess he was one of his professors at UCLA in the School of Social Work. Um, is this it? Yeah, David Shapiro.
Hmm.
Um,
Not sure
yeah,
if I do or don't know.
I read this book when I was younger too, and I'd like to check it out again because I don't remember too much about it. Um, but yeah, so he had an eclectic approach. But yeah, so how did I get out of that numbness? I knew I wanted to cry. Like I could feel it. So it wasn't, I guess, 100% numb, but like it just felt stuck. It was like I felt so down and hopeless and then like fatigued and um and again, it's hard for me to separate how much of this was mold and how much of it was psychological. And he could have done a better job with assessing potential physiological causes because his approach was just psychological. And he didn't consider that at all. And I have this memory where uh he said or I said he asked me how I was doing or something, I think beginning of the session, and I said, I'm exhausted. And he was like, exhausted? I mean, that's like a pretty strong word. Um yeah, it was like he was trying to help me from his view see that I was like maybe being too extreme about it. And
Yeah.
I might be tired, but like it's not like I'm a single mom with kids who's like, whatever, doing exhausted, like really true exhaustion. But looking back on it now, I'm like, dude, I was in toxic mold. I was exhausted. So there were, he made some mistakes, as we probably will as well. But anyway, yeah, I think it must have been through that process of talking about like feelings toward my parents, um, and about myself. Mm, yeah, I don't remember the exact like moment where things shifted and I moved from numbness. It was way gradual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
by the
fair.
time I started feeling, I also had started smoking weed. So I don't know if that helped or didn't help, you know, with the feeling part at least. Uh, but that clouds things a little bit. Actually, I think weed helped me feel. I was like really anti-drug when I was a teenager. I got sucked into the dare thing. Um, and all my friends were smoking weed, or most of them, they were smoking weed around me, and that was okay, but I just wasn't gonna do it. And then when I was 18, something changed, and I was just one day I was just like, wait, why am I not doing this? That was basically it. Like, what is I've been judging it as like it's such a bad thing to do, but why? And I got really curious about it. And so then I ended up smoking with my friends. And, at the time, that was like 2 years into my experience of depression. And it just felt like, oh, like it was the first relief I had experienced in 2 years. It was like I could breathe. And I was just like, oh my God, I could. And I do remember the experience of, there was like a lot of, I guess, joy in the experience. And so it's just to come out of this numbness and have all this joy and fun. I was just like, oh my God, like this is what I was hoping antidepressants would do.
But they didn't.
But they didn't.
Oh.
So yeah, so I do actually think weed probably played a role. Not that long after that, I started doing some psychedelics. So I'm sure that played a role. There were a lot of factors that came into it. I also started meditating around that time. Yeah.
It's right on.
What about you? Was it more numb or more sad?
There was a lot of numbness.
Uh,
Yeah, huge. And for me, is also a combination of things. Um, I was also in total denial about a lot of things in childhood. And yeah, it was a process. I remember um, I became depressed after my breakup with an ex that I thought was my soulmate. I guess like the Christian equivalent to a twin flame.
mm,
And I remember a moment I started to read No More Mr. Nice Guy. That was probably one of the first like psychological books I read. I mean, I read like personal development. So I guess technically those are psychological minded, but this was written by a psychologist and more so in that therapy world. And I remember reading, and there's a moment where I just had a grief moment, just like cried for about maybe 5 seconds, and then it zipped up. And it was just like, I couldn't feel anything. It was like numb. No matter how hard I tried in that moment to feel it, it's, it's gone. And it was kind of a series of that. Um, there's a lot of things that went into it. Therapy didn't honestly help.
mm,
Um, but my coach did. We did a lot of emotional releasing, a lot of somatic stuff, feeling my feet on the floor, grounding, uh, did a lot of inner child work, regression. He might not have called it that, but now I know it as that.
mm,
And for anyone who doesn't know what regression is, it's simply in this context, when you go back in your imagination, you go back in time, perhaps as a child, or whenever a really particular event. Give me a second.
yeah.
What was I saying? I was saying,
Regression.
yeah, regression is just I guess a technique of sorts where you go back in time and you resolve the original event.
Oh.
Yeah, for people who don't know that word. So yeah, I mean, it was I'd wished I'd wished that my therapist would have talked more about my childhood. In fact, when I went into therapy, that's what I thought therapy was supposed to be, right? Like, oh, you talk about your childhood and resolve childhood things. But we just talked about my present life.
Mm,
And then I would go back and I'd wonder, did anything change? And I go back again the next week and we talk about my life more and blah, blah, blah. And every once in a while, there'd be some kind of insight. Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't think of it like that way. Then I drive back and know that my life is still the same. And yeah, that was my initial experience with therapy. It's just I kept going back and nothing really changed. Yeah.
That's a great advertisement for therapy. No, I mean we talked about it before, and I think a lot of people have that experience, and and then therapy gets a bad rap.
Yeah, which is why I'm just a big advocate of these more experiential types of modalities. I think that it helps move the ball forward, and especially when it comes to something like numbness or depression. It's so easy to get caught up in the loop of ruminating. Uh, but more experiential therapies, they start to tap into that feeling. You start to tap into that grief stages, that grief. I don't want to call it a cycle because you don't want it to cycle, but that the stage of whatever the grief is gonna take you through. But if you don't start it, if you're always looping in the cognitive and the intellectual about about the depression, uh, you never get there.
Yeah, I'm finding myself lost in memories. I'm just like reviewing my whole life. But more so my whole experience from 16 on, from starting therapy and being depressed and just everything, how it all unfolded. I'm just like, I was just getting all these different images and impressions. I think what you're saying, my first therapist was great, but it was all cognitive work, 100%. Uh, and so I started, I gained a lot of knowledge. I gained a lot of cognitive awareness of patterns and how things work and, what's related to low confidence and what's related to low self-worth and where could that possibly come from and like all the understanding of it. And I did throughout that time, I certainly got less depressed. He says, unsure. Um, I certainly got more functional.
I think that's good. I think that's less depressed, right? Or I mean, adjacent to it.
Well, yeah, so now I'm actually questioning because I when I was 19, I started smoking weed every day. Um, I wouldn't smoke until the afternoon because I wasn't a very functional high. Uh, so I went to school and went to work, and then after that, then I would get high. But it was like my whole life started to revolve around it, and I was dependent on it. So I was just kind of like unhappy and anxious until I got to smoke weed later. And yeah, so I mean, that doesn't sound too not depressed. But I guess this is maybe a good thing to put in this conversation because it's like this is depression. Like the word depression, it's so vague and broad. And I don't like it very much. And I don't like the word anxiety very much either. I don't like any diagnosis very much because of this, because I think it creates a misunderstanding of what the experience is, and it tries to fit it into these boundaries that it doesn't actually fit into.
Yeah.
Unless it's like the most severe form of it, then it'll probably tick all those boxes.
Yeah. My problem is it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't describe the specifics of what's going on, and then it doesn't actually tell you what the cause is.
Yeah.
because people are complex.
Yeah, because I might suggest that there are many people, I know some of them, who are uh who are mildly depressed and don't know it. And they're functioning fine for the most part. They would report being satisfied with their lives for the most part. But if I talk to them, I'm like, yeah, this is mild depression. You're disconnected from your body, you're disconnected from feeling, you don't even know what you're feeling. Um, there's a lot of signs there. But they wouldn't meet criteria, probably.
Yeah, no. Most people don't fit into these neat little DSM boxes.
Yeah. So yeah, was I majorly depressed? I think I stopped being majorly depressed after like 2.5 years, which I guess is a long time. I mean, um, I think the criteria usually it's like 6 months. That's how long an episode of major depression lasts or can last. And then if it extends beyond that, then you might consider changing the diagnosis. And if it goes to 2 years, then you change it to dysthymia, now persistent depressive disorder. And I used to look all these things up on Wikipedia when I was 17, 18, and I would go into therapy and be like, I think I have dysthymia now. Started being a therapy nerd early.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. It was all right. But um yeah, but anyway, it's like I think in some ways I've dealt with depression my whole adult life. And it's only maybe in the last like definitely the last year, but maybe the last like 2.5 to 3 years that I feel like I've been reckoning with it in a way that's actually changing it. And the other it did change over time before, but it was I don't know, haphazard, like throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Maybe an ayahuasca ceremony here, maybe I can just cry it out, just like trying things, desperately trying to feel better. Unconsciously. I stopped thinking of myself as depressed by the time I was 22.
Right, right. But still not truly happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking back even like 3-ish years ago, I'd say there was enough going on. I would say I was depressed-ish. But again, mold. There's that factor.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I don't give enough credit to physical causes.
Yeah, I don't either. And I don't know, even having experienced it, I don't it seems impossible to tease it apart. It's like I don't know. They just seem to feed into each other. Like one enhances the other somehow. And maybe past trauma actually made me more susceptible to the physical illness. And then the physical illness traumatized me. And so then it's like, which is
Crazy loop.
yeah, which is which. But yeah, viewing it from like a whole being approach, it's everything affects everything else. So it's all relevant information. The problem is that I think this is why I don't focus on the physical as much. It's because most people that I see trying to focus on the physical, they're coming at it from a psychological place that's not going to be sustainable. That
Like,
face, elaborate.
yeah, they're trying to eat healthy and exercise and thinking that is going to solve that, and then but they're just not able to sustain that lifestyle.
Yes, pretty much. Even with mold, even with someone dealing with mold, it's like the the stuff I had to do to get out. I got rid of everything that I owned, every single thing except for my cats. And it was like a huge um, task. It was a huge task. And and there are all these things like you could go on these forums and learn about mold illness and you need to take this supplement and you need to like do this sort of physical activity so that you're stimulating your lymph so that it can drain better and like all this there's all this huge list of physical things that you should implement and and yeah they would probably benefit you but yeah I see it in basically everybody that the approach that they're taking with themselves is it makes it hard to sustain and so both need to transform at the same time. It's like you can do it you can do the physical stuff and you can experiment with changing things physically, but you also have to be addressing how you're relating to your own experience and yourself so that you want to do that stuff. So it's like it's in alignment with you and not something you have to beat yourself over the head with to do.
Yeah, because I'm hearing that even with dealing with something like mold or changing your physical circumstances or changing health habits, your psychology, your personality, the trauma, whatever it might be, patterns are you're still going to have to come to terms with that because the patterns will play out in how you are dealing with the mold or whatever health issue that you're having.
Yeah, I think generally speaking that's true. And and I have a bias toward leaning into the inner work, addressing the inner stuff first, and that makes doing the outer stuff easier. Um, but I think that it's not actually a linear thing or like a set rule. It's sometimes doing the outer thing changes an inner thing. And so it's just an experiment. It's a discovery of what's going to work for you.
Yeah, yeah,
But for me, I find that it's either the inner thing has to be addressed first or they will be addressed simultaneously. I don't typically experience like I just make an outer change and then that later changes my inner experience. It's like they co-occur for me.
interesting. Yeah. I want to go back to a thing. I don't know if this will open up a new can of worms or if it's profitable. I don't know. But it's just interesting um, that it took a really, really long time for you to relate to the depression in a really, or address the depression in a very satisfying, fulfilling way. And I'm also thinking like, damn, like we're not selling therapy really well right now. Uh, do you think this is part of the process, or if do you think that if you had a different therapist or a different set of circumstances, maybe you would have addressed it sooner?
Um, let me go pee.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So your question was what, like, if I had had a different therapist, if circumstances had been different, could it have gone, could that process have been faster?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. You know, part of earlier I was lost in some memories and part of what I was remembering was how unconscious I was. I don't know if you remember uh the like I guess the feeling state, like the state of being how that felt to be that unconscious. But I remember like specific instances where there was something happening in someone there was something happening with someone I was dating, and I was having some issues with sex and it was like no awareness of it at all of what could emotionally be causing the struggles I was having with sex. It's like I would come up with some reason, oh, maybe I'm smoking too much weed. Maybe that's what's happening. Okay. And then just the way I feel about it now, looking back, is as if I existed in a fog.
Good.
Is that
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Not gonna lie, one of my defenses that I haven't truly resolved is that I will just not remember shit. Like it'll just be hard to remember things in my life. Um, and sometimes when I have like a mental fog, that'll happen. Let me try to think. Let me like, what was it like? Was it like a fog for me? Um, I think it was less, and metaphors change, but they show us something very unique about uh our personalities, or at least the way we are relating to a thing, right? I think for me, at least in this moment, the metaphor is not so much like a fog, but it's almost like this damper, like this curtain or not a cloud, but it's more like just like this damper.
Mhm.
Uh, best way to put it. I just couldn't.
like it dulls
Yeah.
the vibrancy of the experience or something?
I mean, I guess it could be a cloud, honestly. Now that I think about it, it was just like very, just very apathetic, and I still have parts of me that are very apathetic. I've realized. Um, that are still kind of numb. But yeah, I guess it's like a kind of like a cloud and kind of like I imagine it's kind of what happens when you take like some kind of painkiller or some kind of drug. Like I almost feel like I was just like on drugs, but the drug was like apathy, you know,
Mm.
just totally just zonked out.
And that's part of the issue I have with being having clarity about this is that I was smoking so much weed. Like it could have that could have also helped with the fog. I'm sure. Uh, but yeah, anyway, going back to your question, um, yeah, if I'd had a different therapist, it's so hard to say, man. I don't know. Uh, it seems to me that it all happened perfectly. Like every little thing, every little experience that it happened in the exact way it needed to happen for me to have the experience that I was supposed to have. And that's how I process it. And that's not, I think maybe we've talked about this. I don't remember, but to me it's not like necessarily a it's not as simple as saying everything happens for a reason. Um, it's more like I am here in this moment and I am where I am and I am who I am and it couldn't have gone any other way as evidenced by this moment. Like it's just fantasy, to think about it.
Well, I would argue that fantasy is important too, you know, exploring that. But that aside, um, have you always had that outlook?
I don't know. Mm, I always had like even when I was extremely depressed, I had something in me that was, I guess people would call it optimistic. Like there was something that felt like, I don't know, like it's going to be okay, or somehow this is going to lead me where I'm supposed to go. So, yeah, I think it was a really small, vague feeling when I was a teen. And then um, I think when I started meditating and doing psychedelics and having some spiritual awakening stuff, then it really amplified that. Because I think
Understood.
I started having more direct experiences of that on the daily, synchronicity. Like I would just see it happening in real time, and then I'd be like, "Oh, all right, here we go."
I was going somewhere with all this, but I don't know what or remember what.
Well, you started with we're doing a really bad job selling
Yeah,
psychotherapy,
yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I guess if I had had someone who actually was taking more of a whole being approach, I imagine it could have all gone faster. Like I don't see, I don't believe it has to take this long for everyone. And I've heard it put this way by I think some past coaches I had of like I went through a longer, denser form of suffering so that I can support people with making it through that in less time.
Fair.
So I don't think it has to take that long for people, and hopefully, well, I don't know if it's hopefully it won't, but um, yeah, I think certainly it's helpful to be presented with all of the tools and options in a shorter period of time. It just took me a long time to discover all of them.
Yeah, same.
And ultimately why I stopped seeing my first therapist. Well, at least a big part of it was my insurance. I was getting kicked off my parents' insurance. So, there was that. But it coincided with me starting to do ayahuasca ceremonies and getting even more into spiritual awakening stuff. And he did not understand any of that.
Fair. Yeah. And that's a big part of who you are and big part of your growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this could lead into a different conversation. I don't know if you want to take it there. Uh, should I mention it and then we go back, or I'm second guessing
Uh,
myself?
yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay. So one psychotherapy researcher has noted, and this was like back in the 2000s, 2010s, right? So maybe things have changed. I think they have, right? Like therapy is like popular now, but I guess back in the day, more people would want, at least one study, more people would have wanted to see their psychic rather than a therapist. And I think part of the reason, a big part of the reason is the psychic believes that stuff, right? Like that's they share a particular worldview in which the therapist doesn't really. And it's like a different effect, right? Like if a psychic tells you, "Wow, your mom has moved on. She's in a better place." And like I see that and that has a really deep therapeutic effect that therapy may or may not have. Um, is it right? Is it wrong? Who knows? Maybe as a therapist, you might say, well, but what's really important is that they come to an acceptance uh, that they need to grieve the loss of their loved one and come to a place of acceptance and without the psychic. Fair enough. But there is a sort of a very deep psychological effect that you can have as a psychic doing that. And you share this worldview. And so, going back to what you were saying with your first therapist, that he did not share those types of experiences or that worldview uh, that you were in. And I think there might be some kind of um, possible, even a rupture, a slight rupture in the therapeutic alliance, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like well, at some point, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I went from feeling like this person sees me to, oh, he can't see me.
Yeah. And that was a gradual thing for you.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I got into spiritual awakening stuff when I was like 20, but it wasn't until I was 26 that I stopped seeing him. So it did take some time, and maybe for a while I felt like, well, there's still of this other stuff that he does see, and that's really helpful for me, and so I'll just keep seeing him, and I don't need him to understand non-duality or whatever. But then at some point I was like, I need him to understand.
Right. Right. And I guess this maybe ties into another conversation about choosing your therapist, and not every therapist is right for you. Or they're right for a time, for a specific phase of your life, and then maybe not. And that's okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also it factors into my bias around how I think it's valuable for therapists to go as deep as possible in their own process and their own experience, because then that's going to allow you to see more. You'll have a broader view, and you'll be able to see more people. Like you'll be able to understand, to really see them um, more than more than you could before without having some of these deeper experiences yourself.
I want to agree and disagree. I want to throw something out there because my old coach which I kind of view him as a therapist, really. But when I was wanting to get into coaching, the thing that his advice for me was like journal, because that's the thing that's going to help you understand people. And I don't know if that was actually true. I think there was a seed of truth there because it's very similar to what you're saying. Like you really need to understand your own experience and go deep into that. Um, and while I do agree, I also feel like it's missing something. I think that I think it's too easy to assume that everyone is dealing with the same thing that you are. And that there does need to be, first of all, lots of experience with exposure to different people, working with different people, and training kind of more broadly in different types of issues.
Sounds about right.
Okay, yeah. I
Uh,
think maybe I was just hyper focusing on, well, I just need to understand myself, and if I understand myself, then I'll understand other people, and it didn't quite work out the way that I was thinking it would.
hmm. Yeah, no, no, no. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, I think it's a fair point. It's not that only, I don't really know how to say it. It's like it does something, but it doesn't do everything, if that makes sense. Uh,
It's a necessary but not a sufficient condition.
uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because certainly it's not that, oh, I know my own history and my own psyche, and so that's definitely going to apply to everybody that I talk to. It's like everyone I talk to has such different experiences, and many of which I, it's not that I can't relate to them at all, but I don't relate to them as much. Like I just haven't had them. Those specific experiences. Maybe I've had something that's like barely kind of sort of similar, and I can, pick up on that thread in myself. But yeah, it's so varied. But I do think that there is a lot of core similarity. And so the more I know like really deep core stuff, and also just like have a broader awareness of um, awareness, an awareness of awareness, and how our consciousness works. Like that's the thing. That's the thing that to me, I've only learned that through engagement in my own process. And that's the thing that was missing with my previous therapist.
Understanding consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, his understanding went, I don't want to downplay it. It's like he's a really intelligent guy and he had a lot of understanding about the psyche, but there was like a huge missing piece there for me
Yeah.
that I think allows me, I mean, I feel this on a daily basis. It allows me to uh, connect more with the experiences that my clients are going through, even if they don't use that language to talk about their experience.
Hmm.
But it's because to me, I have this broader context of like um, how, like what we are, what we actually are, and then that allows me to like be more precise in my diagnosis and approach to issues that people are going through.
Interesting.
If we don't know who and what we are, then it makes it a lot harder to understand what's happening.
Fair enough. I mean, I can't argue with that.
So there's something else, we were talking about depression. I don't know if we really, I mean, we kind of talked about what it is in a certain way. Uh, I think that's, I think we could have many conversations about what it is. But I just want to throw this out there because it's on my mind, that I'm going to say it and then I'm going to have to evaluate after if it's true or not.
As usual. No.
Yeah. But it seems like if I can oversimplify everything, that psychological distress, whether it's depression or anxiety, or it could be, well, I think these are things on a spectrum. So it could be like OCD, it could be schizophrenia, it could be like anything, any psychological distress that I mean, actually we kind of read it earlier. I guess I agree with Jung in a lot of ways that it's like a conflict between what we could call the egoic identity or our current identity structure and the authentic self, the authentic emergence of ourself and who we really are. And a big part of that is also disconnection from the body.
Yeah. Huge.
And I I can only speak to our time that we live in. So but I can say it's probably more so now than ever, the disconnection from the body, that we have more technologies that we can use to help us disconnect from the body more and or stay disconnected. I do think probably people in the past, prior to the Industrial Revolution, let's say, were probably still disconnected from the body in some way. They're probably up in their head thinking about whatever they're thinking about, unless they were actively practicing mindfulness or something. Um, but it's like now it's crazy. It's just the never-ending stream of stimulation is crazy. And I just think it's like it's at the core of things. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to it, but it's like it really just is that we're disconnected from our bodies and from feeling. And the whole process of psychotherapy is essentially like the point of it is just to get in touch with your body and your feeling. And when I say in touch with, I don't just mean feeling, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. There are different ways to feel. So you can, if you're really in touch with something, you're in touch with the truth of it, which means, to me, that you can hold it in the proper position, which is that's another way of just of saying you can not be identified with it. You can feel your feelings and not be swallowed by them or not have it just cycle.
Hmm. So when you say the truth of it, that really struck me. The truth of the feeling. Is that how you worded it?
Yes, I think.
Yeah. I'm assuming what you mean by that is the truth that you are not this feeling.
Yeah, that you're not this feeling and that the feeling is a vehicle. The first thing I wanted to say is a messenger. It's both. It's like the feeling is a messenger and it's a vehicle. And when you feel it, you get in the vehicle and then it takes you somewhere else. Like it changes you.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. I love that. That's good. It's both a messenger and a vehicle. It is In a way, it is the problem, but it's also the solution in different ways.
I
I
love
like
that.
that. Yeah, when you said the truth of the feeling, I was interpreting that as something slightly different from my lens.
Mm.
And that is that feelings bring up uncomfortable truths that oftentimes we lie to ourselves about. And when we come face to face with that truth, then we can actually take that vehicle and it'll take us somewhere. But
Mm.
only until we face that uncomfortable truth and accept it.
That's a good way of putting it too. I like that. Yeah. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this applies to what you're saying, that, so often what I see is, I mean, it's a conflict between the conscious and the unconscious. It's like I'm talking to somebody and consciously they would say, of course I'm not angry with my parents. They were good parents. I had a great childhood. They provided everything I needed. They love me. Of course I'm not angry with them. And that's because consciously there's a story, or actually unconsciously, whatever, there's a story somewhere about that it's not okay to be angry with them because they gave you a lot. And that would be ungrateful or whatever. But but it doesn't matter what you think consciously. It's all about what you feel unconsciously.
Yeah. And
And
well, yeah. And that's like a layer of denial there, right?
mhm,
Numbness even.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember saying something very similar to that. Yeah.
same, I think, probably. Yeah, but there's so many examples like that. And that, I'm trying to remember what you were saying. Oh, it's like reckoning with the truth that you don't want to face.
Yeah. The truth is maybe you were angry.
Yeah.
Maybe they were shitty at that one time, you know.
Yeah, that maybe, and I'm not going to say maybe, it's the case, people, that they could be loving and decent and give you a lot and support you and provide for you and still hurt you deeply.
Right. Right. That dialectic. Both are true.
And that you could have a lot of feelings about that. And obviously a lot of inner conflict about it. And to learn what to do with that, I think when people first hear maybe about more psychodynamic approaches or something, they think that, yeah, I don't know exactly what they think. They think you're gonna get stuck in blame, I guess. They're like, okay, so you're just supposed to realize that your parents were shitty and they hurt you and they suck and it's all their fault. And it's like, well, maybe that's a preliminary step, but then you're gonna move beyond that. It's not about blame. It's about the truth. It's just about the truth. What happened? What happened and how it made you feel and what it made you believe about yourself. The proof is in the pudding. If you believe that you're a piece of shit somewhere in you, it didn't just come out of nowhere.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, what I'd like to say is nothing happens in a vacuum. That thought came out of some kind of context. Um, and this is semi-related. I want to share. A long time ago, not a long time ago, a few years ago, um, I remember I was leading this like meditation for this like very more like new thought progressive spiritual center or church, whatever you want to call it. And I was like late. I was like rushing out the door. And so I remember I looked in the mirror. I just had this fleeting little thought of a very guilty thought of, man, I shouldn't even be leading this. I'm look at me. I'm about to be late. I shouldn't be leading this. Just like a very subtle thought. And um later that day, I remember being in so much pain. I was like depressed and it hadn't happened in a while. I'm like, where the heck did this depression come from all of a sudden? Like I just feel like I'm laying in bed. I'm in a lot of emotional pain. I don't want to do anything. And I'm like, where the crap did this come from? I traced it back and I was able to go back to that moment where I had that fleeting thought, unchecked, where I just accepted it, that I shouldn't even be doing this. I shouldn't be leading this. But I was thinking more about that event, and it relates to what we're saying here is that this thought didn't just come out of nowhere. It wasn't like it just popped out of existence, from an alien or something. And unless you believe in that stuff, but I don't. It doesn't like pop out of nowhere. No. There is a persistent pattern of thinking that way as a personality trait, right? And that's a deeper issue to look at.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, like if you have a crazy, it depends on what the thought is. If it was just like a thought like out of the blue that's not characteristic of you at all, then okay. You don't have to believe every thought you think. You should meditate and be able to observe that thought and not attach to it, right? But in this context, there's um, a deeper context, right, of this recurring pattern, and that thought didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah. I like the part that really stood out to me with that I see a lot in clients is just it's just the automatic belief in it and you just move on. You have the thought I shouldn't be leading this or um whatever. I'm ugly, whatever the thought is, and then you just automatically accept that that's the truth and then move on. And that's why it's in your example, you demonstrated why it's so important to have the awareness, have enough awareness to be curious about your thoughts and whether or not they are true. How do you know if it's true?
Yeah. Yep. Because in one unchecked thought, if you accept it, it can lead to a lot of pain.
I think I see this a lot with people that struggle with depression. That it's they have a thought and they believe it and they don't know that they're having a thought and believing it.
Right. It's so unconscious. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I start to, walk them through that and show them, yeah, oh, you had this thought and then you believed that it was true and it sounded pretty harsh. And then they're like, hmm, well, different people respond differently. Sometimes they're just like, it doesn't register at all. They're just they're just like,
Moving
well, yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty annoyingly persistent, and so um, at some point, usually they'll start to question it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, but I guess you maybe already answered this, is are they able to link those thoughts to their depression and be like, oh, that might be why I'm depressed?
Well, I mean, I think initially, no. I think that's part of the
It's part of the
part,
problem. Yeah.
yeah, part
Yeah.
of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the thought isn't just a thought, it's a feeling. CBT, they harp on core beliefs, and I guess it would be that you have a core belief that generates a feeling. I kind of think um, I don't think it's as clear cut as that. I think it's like a it's it's like a package. You have this core package that is thoughts and feel it's beliefs and feelings. And some of it's pre-verbal feeling. So then it doesn't have a belief associated, it's just a feeling.
Interesting. I might take a different view of that.
Me too.
I do think that feelings and beliefs are actually two sides of the same coin.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so if you are able to release a feeling, generally, you also release a belief. And vice versa. If you release a belief, you will generally also release a feeling. I don't know if that's true 100% of the time. It seems true in my experience.
I'm really struggling with it. I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe. Like, okay, so
Because, okay, go ahead. Well, actually, let me make my argument, right?
yeah, you go.
Because there's always meaning attached to attached to a feeling. That's my assumption.
Yeah, it's a pretty good assumption. I don't know. I feel like it's unclear when you get down into the really subtle level of it. It's like, can you separate the two?
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems to me like the problem is that I'm having right now is I'm having trouble remembering instances where I changed or released a belief and then the feeling changed or released completely. I definitely know that I experienced the other, um, where
Yeah, right.
like feeling is primary. Feeling
I
happens
agree. Okay,
before.
I think we're in alignment there. I will always side on feeling.
Uh-huh. But you are right that every feeling gets assigned a meaning.
There's some meaning there. Now, I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea what the meaning is oftentimes. Like I've gotten better at it actually. I can usually suss what the belief is, but you don't have to know the belief in order to change the feeling. Uh, yeah, yeah, you don't have to know the belief.
But you have to feel the feeling in order to change the belief.
Yes. Well,
Maybe.
yes, it depends on what you define as feeling the feeling, but yes, I think what's missing in a CBT-esque way of doing things or REBT way of doing things is that it seems to just kind of be on the level of the intellectual. So like
Mm,
yeah, like you can intellectualize it all you want, but unless you connect with the feeling in the body, you're not actually dealing with the real problem,
mm.
in my opinion. Uh, Once you connect with the feeling, I think that's when things start to shift and you talk to the feeling. You don't stay on the level of the cognitive. Um, yeah, I don't know where it's going with that.
I'm editing a video right now that I'm gonna post, I don't know, later today or tomorrow. Um, that where I was talking about this kind of where it's like, you know, how we've talked about it a little bit, the pendulum swings that happen just in general, but in the psychotherapy field, and it's like cognitive therapy was the shit for a long time, and now the pendulum is swung, and now people are like, no, you should only do somatic therapy or
Right, right,
whatever.
right, right.
Um, and and it's like the cognitive therapy is like opening a door. It's like, creating the conscious understanding of something or the conscious awareness of something, and you're opening a door, and then you have to move into the feeling of something. And then there's like a dynamic dance between the cognitive and developing your awareness and understanding on a conscious level, but then bringing it into the body so that you actually feel what's happening in the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. It actually made a connection there. Yeah, it's like the cognitive stuff opens up the door into feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the way I do things is kind of both and. Um, and I've seen crazy stuff. If you challenge a belief and you just watch them like you can just see that their mind is shifting when you like present like a contradiction or something, and it's just like, oh, holy crap. And I've gone through that too. But I've also seen the exact opposite to where they didn't challenge any belief. There was no belief being challenged, and it was just like more somatic. Like, I guess it maybe like a EMDR type of thing, or like a eye movement, or you just went through the feeling, and then they start thinking in a totally different way. It's like all the thoughts that were associated before just like left. And I yeah, like I think that's so just kind of how we work, because a lot of things are just post hoc rationalizations of a feeling, like how we make decisions.
Mm, mhm.
And I don't want to rabbit trail off too much. Yeah, you were talking about how the cognitive opens up the door, and uh, we swung the other way to the somatic, which I think has been good, but maybe there's a maybe swinging back the other way now. I don't know, or we need to swing back the other way
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are swinging back the other way.
with the cognitive stuff. I go back and forth
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, like, uh, I think we are engaging with it in a way where we already know that we're not going to reject 100% of either of them outright. It's like there's good stuff in both, and it's yeah, it is the swinging back and forth to discover when do you use this, when do you use that, when do you go to the body, when do you talk about something.
it's still an art, man. It's still well, I want to say it's both an art and a science. And I'm not fully understood when to do when to do which. I mean, I have my own style and it seems to work. Uh, but that's not to say I don't get stuck sometimes. I definitely do. And especially with harder clients. And I just think there is seriously an art and a science to this that I'm really wanting to discover. I think that, in my opinion, a lot of the psychoanalyst or psychoanalytic tradition has it right. And I really think that you can make shifts in a short time. I really do. That doesn't mean that some people might need longer therapy, or that everyone can make shifts in a short time. But with that said, there's like a lot of short-term dynamic therapies out there. One of them being ISTDP, and that's I really want to learn that model. I think it really has some key understandings of people, of change, and when to do which, you know. Um, yeah.
What does that stand for? I was trying to.
Oh yeah. So intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned that before. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this guy, he was an Iranian psychiatrist by the name of Davinlu. He's no longer alive. I think he passed away just a few years ago, actually. But he developed this thing just based on his own observations, and because I guess he wasn't getting the results that psychoanalysis was promising his clients, and he began to just experiment and test and record uh his sessions, and even sometimes collaborate with clients and see like, oh, see, this is what you were doing, this is what I was doing, and then like, and so he just developed this system, and he got pretty crazy results with his clients. And so apparently, um, we think of Freud, we think of psychoanalysis as taking a really long time, right? That's the caricature, right? The stereotype. But actually, apparently, the first half of Freud's uh, career as a analyst, he never spent more than 6 months with a client. Like
Mm,
he actually put more pressure on them and took a shorter time. I think later in his life, that's when things started to change. But it is interesting that he actually took a shorter amount of time with clients in the first half. And I think there was something there that he was doing that perhaps psychoanalysts today are not. And that's putting sometimes you gotta put pressure on the unconscious mind.
mm, mhm.
Otherwise they kind of loop you loop in the defenses.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I was thinking about it just that my weakness or my area of growth is that sometimes I don't realize that they're not feeling as we're talking. Because where I'm at now, when I'm talking about something, I'm feeling it. It's not an exclusively cognitive project.
Right. Right.
But I know, like I can tell certain clients where that's happening, and then the others where it's not, and getting better at making that distinction, so then I can change my approach, so that yeah, so we're not just looping in the defenses for months and months.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, because I think we talked about this before that it took both of us kind of a long time to get to that point. Right. Yeah, because I can talk about something and then I'll start feeling and I can kind of do my own work and have realizations. But that was a long time coming.
Yeah, took me about 16 years.
So there is something to be said about long-term therapy.
Yeah. There's something emerging. Ah, I don't quite have the words for it. Um, yeah, I guess I'll just start talking. I haven't figured it out, but it's has something to do with, what I was talking about earlier, that it's like my path has unfolded perfectly as I see it. And to me, that's just true. It's not like a positive spin I'm putting on something. It's like the reality of it. And I think maybe this is kind of Jungian, or Jung and I would be on the same page about this, but just that the inherent intelligence of the divine, of life, um, is active in everything that's happening. And I think to know that, not to believe it, not to have faith in it dogmatically, but to know it experientially, that changes the whole meaning making dynamic in a way that's really helpful. And it's a interesting thing because it's not something, because it sounds like a spiritual belief. And so then I'm careful with it. I don't want to push that belief on people. But at the same time, it's an experience that can be created. And then you can have a direct experience of it, and it's not a belief. So I guess this is a bit of a place where I experience tension in myself, because I want to help create that experience for people, but I also want to be conscientious about about what they want to believe, and that if they don't want to go there, then they don't want to go there. And maybe there's a way. I think what I try and do is maybe more subtle. It's just like a subtle way of introducing that view. And I present it as it's a view you can choose to have. Like we have to have some kind of view of our suffering. And so the most useful one is that you can use suffering to grow in a positive way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, and so yeah, that's like a really helpful thing. But I just, in my own life and my own experience, it's more profound than that. To have the experiential realization that everything that's happening is like, it's like, um, I don't, there's just this loving intelligence that's like molding it for me.
Originally, I was going to say that this reminded me a lot of Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Mm, mhm.
And and I don't know where I was going with that.
You said originally you were going to say that, and then something else happened.
Well, I mean, I guess I did. Anyways, so uh yeah, it reminded me a lot like that. And yeah, yeah, I guess the question is how do you give people that experience without imposing that belief? That's where I'm
Uh,
struggling too, is because I do believe that like they have self energy, right? Or however you want to describe it. And I do think that's within them, assuming they don't have massive brain damage or something else, but like 99.9% of people have that self energy within them or that unconditional love, which has that knowing. Yeah, it's just like how do you open them up to that if they don't have any kind of grid, any kind of spiritual inclination of that. So, yeah. Yeah, see this is where I'm having trouble in a similar way where I feel like if you understand principles of manifestation and not buy into like spiritual bypassing or whatever, but actually like experience in the body the principles of manifestation, which is all about changing your state of consciousness. I do think there's like a level of peace and outlook that is actually very supportive in the way that you're describing. But I can't tell that to people, right? It's yeah. I think the best way that I can do it is okay, and I need to remember this. So the best way maybe I could do it is look, imagine two parallel worlds, right? In parallel world A, everything, imagine that both parallel worlds, everything is the same in terms of out of circumstances. It's as shitty or it's as good as as it is. But in parallel universe one in A, you have all that negativity, the shitty programming. I'm raising my hand. Uh, you have all of that stuff, all the anger, the sadness, the grief, the pain, beliefs, whatever it is. But in B, you're happy, you're joyful, you feel like things are going to be okay. But everything else is the same externally. So what is the difference between A and B? And which one would be more conducive to just changing your external circumstances?
Mhm. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I haven't presented that yet. In some circumstances I have, but I think I'm like workshopping it here right now.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll workshop it.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, uh, I was gonna go maybe in a similar direction, kind of that it's always about what's effective, like what's actually gonna work for you. What's if you want things to be different, what is the best psychological orientation and emotional orientation to take that will allow you to act in your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a pretty good argument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. And yeah, and so going back to like the synchronicity stuff or the experience that there's uh y- that what's happening serves me and there's a greater intelligence involved in that. It almost doesn't matter if you frame it exactly like that. But I think that if anybody sincerely practices mindfulness and meditation, that they will it'll change the way you see things. And you might not frame it exactly like that, the way that I did, but you'll get pretty close. There's something there's something there. Because a lot of what happens, I think, in meditation is the dropping of resistance. And so when you drop resistance, you're gonna drop the meaning making that comes from resistance.
Yeah.
And so then yeah, it's like more of a okay, like accepting I can use this, whatever's happening. I'm gonna ride the wave of it and I'm going to work with it in a way where it will take me somewhere good because that's what I choose to do.
Yeah.
Because to not choose to do that means things will keep sucking.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what you were saying, I think.
Yeah. So maybe two things on that. I guess one would it be accurate to say that meditation helps you see clearly?
Yes.
Oh. And I guess the second thing would be what's the second thing that I forgot? So it's okay. I'll think about it.
I don't know if this is what you were going to ask, but mm, like, does seeing clearly lead to a change in how you view your own suffering or something? I don't know.
No, no. I mean, I definitely think it does. It wasn't about seeing clearly. I think it was something about meditation, and therapy. Yeah, it's okay.
So maybe another twist on the definition of depression, and I would say this about anxiety as well, that they are both distinctly different. Is that redundant? Distinctly different? They're both distinct ways of seeing things not clearly. Like you're seeing things through a distorted lens.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's true. And it's also true that they're also messengers
Mhm.
trying to get you to see something else. So you're both seeing not clearly and yet avoiding the thing that you really need to see.
Yeah. It reminds me of like a fun house mirror sort of thing. It's like depression or anxiety or any maybe any kind of emotional distress. Maybe not any, but emotional distress that's coming due to a distorted lens, um, that yeah, it's like it's showing you something. Holding up a mirror and it's trying to show you something, but the something on the surface, the something it's showing you is distorted. And so if you only look at that, then it's confusing and you're like, what the f this is just a mess. It's not trying to show me anything. It's just showing me a bunch of bullshit. But it's like it's actually through the distortion, it's communicating something. It's like I don't know how else to say it. It's if you recognize it's a distortion, then you'll try and look through a different lens. Or it's like it's almost like saying I don't know, like don't look over here, look over there. But we tend to look over here because that's the loud, painful experience. And so we're staring at the funhouse mirror like, what is this problem? I got to solve it. But the funhouse mirror is trying to say, look behind you, like look over there. I don't know if that's a good enough metaphor, but it's getting there. Because you were saying it's distorted, but it is
Yeah,
also
yeah,
a message.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess it's wanting you to look over there, meaning uh, the deeper truth of that you are love, that things are okay.
Yeah, maybe there are other things too, other messages there, but
Okay.
um, yeah, let's see if we can make it more tangible. It's like if you have a distorted self-image, which most people do, uh, to one degree or another. But let me get even more specific. If you have a distorted body image and self-image, so you think that yeah, you think you're ugly and you think you suck. Um, then the impulse is to focus on the thing right in front of you that seems to be the problem. It's like, well, I need to work on my body and make it look different. I need to work on my personality and make make me suck less. Um, but it's like the feelings in that experience are actually trying to point you in a different direction. It's like you're hitting these pain points, and when you hit a pain point, it's like a flag being thrown up or like a buzzer going off. And it's like, oh, hey, like this isn't right. Something's not true
Yeah.
here. You're actually not viewing this correctly. Um, but you think that feeling is about your shitty personality and ugly body. And that's the distortion. And so then it's like the actual feeling is trying to get you to look deeper that, oh, actually you are viewing yourself inaccurately and thinking that you're worthless or not good enough. And that's what needs attention.
Yeah.
Is that a worthy example of
Yeah,
what?
no, no, no. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've meandered all over the place as usual.
Yep.
Um, we're probably approaching time here. Um, let's see. Is there anything else we want to say to wrap it up? We didn't really touch on anxiety very much. We could talk about that more in the future. Um, but as far as uh,
Yeah. And I might have mentioned this before, and I don't remember if I have or not, but I probably have. Is so number one is that depression and anxiety are the both most common I guess disorders that people have. And in fact, there's a very high core morbidity rate, right? So you're likely to have both depression and anxiety. But the ironic part is they're polar opposites, physiologically speaking. So you cannot be, I'm going to be careful with my words here. You cannot be both depressed and anxious and in the same place at the same time. That is physiologically impossible, right? Depression is inhibitory, anxiety is excitatory. So leads me to think there's something deeper, which is what you were hinting at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, this could be a much longer conversation, but why do you think that they're so connected?
I was going to say childhood trauma is the vague general answer. Um, that's actually a really great question. Why are they connected? I think that I guess we could explain it more from like an evolutionary standpoint that they're just really good survival mechanisms that seem to have worked in the past, and so I guess we've evolved that way, right? Um, I think that yeah, you know what? I'm gonna stick with that answer. I think they're just very common ways of signaling something.
Is it accurate to say that like depression is more of like a freeze response, maybe even fawn,
Mhm.
and then anxiety is like fight or flight.
Yeah,
So it's different aspects of the of like sympathetic activation or something. Um, is that right?
I think so.
Okay. Uh, yeah, where my mind was going was generally speaking, it's like they're both about not feeling good enough.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. 100%.
But in one, the defense is to freeze. Like I'm not good enough and I can't be, so I'll just like freeze, I guess. Um, that's oversimplification, but that. And then the other's like I'm not good enough, so I need to either fight and like prove that I'm good enough, or I need to run, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe now that you're saying that I'm thinking about it more, it's more it's like, yeah, I'm not good enough, therefore I need to keep doing that to myself and keep punishing myself because I'm not good enough. So then depression comes in. Or, oh, I'm scared of feeling not good enough. I'm scared of what others might think of me. So then, aha, I have. So yeah, so it's th those two very common ways of dealing with the not good enoughness.
Mm, yeah, I, I just saw like another 2 hour conversation open up in my head.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I want to say this right now. Um, oh, it's floating away anyway. What was it? Oh yeah, yeah. I often think of anxiety like it's not there are probably some exceptions to this, but it's mostly not that you're afraid of the thing that you think you're afraid of. You're afraid of how you're going to feel. And it's like the feeling. We're actually afraid of the feeling of fear and then um that just spirals out of control from there.
It's ironic, right? You're anxious about the anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think Freud conceptualized anxiety as a defense, as something, yeah, like a deeper feeling that you're not wanting to feel.
Mm. And then I guess depression is similar in that way,
Hmm.
that it's easier in a way to be numb or to just be perpetually down than to face the real pain underneath. Anger, anguish,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, to tie a bow on all this, I don't know if I can, but I was thinking about I don't we just go in different directions. I don't know if we actually wrapped up this this inquiry that you had about my experience and like why it took so long and could it could it not take that long? I mean, we did talk about it a bit. Oh, yes, I did want to say this. Um, but yeah, I think this is why I don't care that much about diagnosis. It's like at a certain point, it doesn't matter at all to me. Um, and and it didn't matter at all in my own experience at a certain point with myself either. Because it's like, yeah, sure. At one point, I met diagnostic criteria for depression. At another point, I met diagnostic criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. And then at some point, I didn't meet criteria for either. But the same core stuff was still there. And I was
Right.
still and I was still struggling basically on a daily basis. And that's why in the last few years-ish, I feel like there's been more of like a real engagement with the core stuff because through no control of my own, I got to a point where I could be disidentified enough from from the whole thing, from the core beliefs and the feelings and all of it, to actually have a relationship with it in a sincere way, and then to look at the relationship and change it or develop it in a different way. And I think that that's ultimately what it's not what everyone needs to do, but it is what you need to do if you want to experience the deepest possible fulfillment and satisfaction in life. If you just want to feel better, you don't have to go that far.
Just drink alcohol. No, don't do that. You don't
But I did though. Like,
feel better.
no. I mean, I had to go this far to feel better. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
everybody does, but like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
it wasn't enough for me to not meet criteria anymore and like just get by in my life.
Right. And you know what? On paper, from a medical model, it would have been like, oh my gosh, look at this. You no longer meet criteria. You're better.
Uh-huh.
Yay. And in one sense, like, that is actually really great that you don't meet criteria. In another sense, it was that a meaningful, was that the meaningful difference you were looking for?
Hmm.
Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just continued to feel bad about myself.
Right.
But then I could feel it. I wasn't numb anymore. So then I could feel how bad
That's good.
I felt.
Yeah. It's one of those ripping off the band-aids, and now it's like, oh no. Yeah. Maybe this is a total off-topic conversation for another time, but maybe we can talk about repression. I would like to prepare for that one though. So,
Okay.
anyways.
Yeah, I feel like there might be one more thing about all this. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's for me. Well, yeah, I guess this is one of the issues I have with the medical model and with any attempt to create a standardized objective measure of these things. It's like I think it just all comes down to like how satisfied do you want to be? What quality of life do you want to have? And there's just been something in me that just kept saying this isn't enough. This isn't enough. Even though comparatively it was way better, but it was still not even close. So there's just something in me that's like I know that it can be so much better. And I don't really know what that is, but um, maybe it's, just part of my true nature, part of our true nature. And something knows when we're not in alignment with that. And when we are in alignment with that, life can feel good, even when it's hard.
Yeah. I actually have something similar.
Mm.
Yeah. I refuse to believe that if you experience trauma, then that's like, oh, all you can do is manage symptoms. I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah. Or I refuse to believe that if you're shame-based from trauma, then you're just always going to have that shame. Like, no. Or if you have depression, you always will have depression.
And I think maybe that's really important. Like that frame that you're presenting, because I think a lot of people, maybe because of, I don't know, doctors who told them otherwise or psychiatrists or something, but they just think, yeah, I just have depression. I just have anxiety and I just have to learn how to manage it. And there's a part of me that wants to like throw in some caveats or something and just say, maybe sometimes there is some issue with the brain, and it's causing that. I just I hesitate with that though. I just like I hate the idea in the medical field in general and health related fields that, oh no, you just have this problem now forever. There's
Yeah.
nothing we can do.
Right.
You just got to take medication for it.
Right.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I think it happens. I think it's very infrequent that that's true. And I think it's important in the psychotherapy and healing process to know that in yourself that like, oh, this isn't right. Like something can get better here. We might not know how to make it better, but just at least to know that it could be better, that's I think probably what fueled me this whole time. It's like every every year or whatever, I'm like, no, it could be better than this. How do I get there? How do I make it better?
It's a good question to have.
So let's end here for today.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. I love you. Goodbye.